Welcome back to another episode of Black Girl World Traveler. I'm Shira, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is digital nomadism. Now, I am of the belief that everyone, if they have the means or can gather the means, should quit that fucking job and go live your life. And I think the pandemic really taught me that life is short. And so in my digital nomad experience as a Black woman, what I realized is that time is waiting for no one, right? We like to think, oh, maybe I should just save up and then things will happen. But no, we got to start today. So today I want to talk about some digital nomad friendly destinations, which I found a list. According to Digital Nomads, some of the top destinations for digital nomads include Lisbon, Portugal, Melbourne, Australia, Chiang Mai, Thailand, which has a huge expat population, and specifically a Black expat population, Bali, Indonesia, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, Cape Town, South Africa, Budapest, Hungary, Berlin, Germany, Barcelona, Spain, Las Palmas, Gran Canaria, Spain, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Medellin, Colombia, Santa Teresa, Costa Rica, Tulum, Mexico, and Austin, Texas. So that was a list of 16 places. So we're going to talk about some of those locations. I'm going to talk to you about some of those locations from my experience and really encourage you to get out there and travel the world. So let's talk about digital nomad living in general, like what it is. So a digital nomad is someone who may work online, but they are traveling. So they don't necessarily have a fixed location of where they live. They may not have an address. Some people may have an address, like a family member's house where they send their mail back, but their life is on the road. This can mean that they live in Spain for a year, and then Iceland for another year, and then Kenya for another year. A digital nomad really is what you make it. And that's what I love about the field, is that you can literally do anything. You can go anywhere for any amount of time. You can leave places. You're not really committed. I think that's the big word that is associated with nomads, because you're not committed to a place because you're a nomad. You travel, you wander, you're fulfilling your wanderlust. So I think that that's the essence of what a digital nomad is. I think the allure of the lifestyle really was heightened by COVID. So COVID-19, I will never forget, it was March 13, 2020. I was working at a school in Philly, where I'm from, and because the majority of the teachers in the Philadelphia school district actually live outside of Philadelphia County, and their COVID rates were so high, schools were closed March 13th, and then pretty much that was the beginning of COVID, because we didn't go back the following week, and then the following week, and then we had to switch to online learning. And that was, for me, like really the start of the pandemic, even though it had already been going on. But in my mind, that is when the pandemic truly started, because that's when it has started to affect me here in the United States. Now, thank God that 2.5 weeks prior, I had just got back from, not maybe 2.5 weeks, but maybe more like 3 or 4 weeks. I had just got back from Trinidad. So I remember COVID happening and the schools being shut down, and then eventually having this transition to online learning. And a lot of us, besides essential workers, transitioned into online work. And we realized, so many of us, and rightfully so, that we can do our jobs from home. We don't have to go in and be under the surveillance of an employer, or be subject to workplace bullying or microaggressions or outright racism. And so online and remote work really took off during the pandemic in 2020, 21, 22. So that's sort of the allure of it, is the freedom that comes along with it, right? You can do your job and do an excellent job and not be surveilled by someone. And that fundamentally, the COVID-19 pandemic fundamentally changed the way that we look at work. Is we can do it from anywhere. I don't need you watching over me, telling me how to do my job that can be done in 4 or 5 hours as opposed to 40, if we're really being honest, right? So because as a result of the pandemic, we saw a boom in remote work, and the biggest advantage is the freedom. I don't really see disadvantages to remote work. However, from what people say, and studies People claim that studies show that Black people are less likely to be promoted because they're not being seen in the office. It's bad for business because a lot of businesses have corporate leases, and corporate leases tend to be, they're not your standard residential lease where it's only 1 year. Corporate leases can be 5 to 10 to 15 years depending on the company. So corporations and businesses were paying rent for office buildings that had no workers. And so that was a financial loss. And businesses still complain about that to this day. So that's the really only drawback. I mean, I guess if you are someone who likes to get up and leave your house, that is also a drawback, right? Like if you are the type of person that wants a clear, strong separation between work and home, remote work isn't probably for you, and that's definitely a drawback because your work is in your home a lot of times. I mean, yes, you can go to coffee shops, and I highly suggest that, or have a space separate from your bedroom to work, but that is something that is a drawback if you are a remote worker. But back to my point about countries. So countries really saw this boom in remote work and people working from home. A lot of people left places such as New York City. Now, during the pandemic, people fled New York City, which makes so much sense because New York City has a lot of transplants and people that are not originally from one of the 5 boroughs. So because they couldn't enjoy and, get to experience the allure of New York City, people fled. They went back home. They saved money, right? No sense in paying $5,000 for a half a square foot bedroom if I'm not going to be able to enjoy the nightlife and all that New York City has to offer. So a lot of people fled back home. Now people are like flocking to New York once again. But during the pandemic, that was a huge deal. But my point about countries is countries saw that there was an uptick in remote work, and prior to that also had maybe like population challenges. And so they incentivized people to come and live in their country. So that is the point that I want to talk about. Countries incentivizing individuals to come live and work in their country. Typically, a country will require that you have a certain amount of funds in your savings accounts. And that's just to show that you won't be financially bankrupt in the country, that you have enough savings to cover your living, food, shelter expenses while you're in the country. Now, every country is different. This can range from anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20,000 US dollars. You'll have to check the country that you're considering going to visa requirements. But that typically is a big requirement. Some do require that you show proof of employment. That is like kind of not as common. And then your visa is, will be good for however long, whether it be a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. Some are even short as 6 months. And then I know some cities, even in the United States, so if we're not even talking about internationally, we're talking about domestically, but some states are so underpopulated that they're paying people to move to these very desolate, boring towns. Now, if y'all want to go do that, that's on y'all. I personally don't recommend that because it's very hard to build community as an adult, and being isolated greatly impacts your mental health. So I wouldn't do that, but that is something that you all can look into. Like if you want to Google places in the United States that pay you to move there, something along the lines. There's podcasts about it, news articles about it. Now, the only time I would probably recommend doing that is if you have a partner or you have community, a friend, close friends, because people don't just move for their partners, they move for their friends too. If y'all want to do it together, and get a bag together and do it and get paid, then it's worth it because you have someone there. You won't be bored. You won't be alone. You won't be isolated. But as a solo traveler, I would personally recommend going to places that are already established. And one place that is already established in the digital nomad community is Tulum, Mexico. Now, personally, full disclosure, I have not been to Tulum. I do not understand the hype over Tulum. It is now very overpriced from what I hear. But Tulum has a great digital nomad working space. And what I mean by that, there are a lot of people who are either from the United States or not necessarily from Mexico that live in Tulum and other cities to work and to enjoy a slower and cheaper pace of life. So let's talk about co-working spaces. So co-working is exactly what it sounds like. There are spaces that where you work with other people. Typically, you're doing this online, like on your computer. And it's just a space where digital nomads or people who work remotely can come together, share community while also doing their work. Now, the beauty of co-working spaces is that a lot of these places are already set up. So there's already places for you to go to build community. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to find people that either have the same nationality as you and or same ethnicity as you. Now, this is really cool because no matter where you go outside the country, you're always going to flock towards the people that the expats, the foreigners, the people that you have something in common with. So what I mean by that is that, yes, you may be open to meeting to meeting new people, local people from the country, but it never fails that when study abroad, students go abroad, they stick together. So like if you notice, like when I went to Ecuador, all the Americans stuck together. Yes, I had Ecuadorian friends, but you stick to people who you have something in common with. And that's typically what happens in these international co-working spaces, is that you will find and quickly attract like-minded people. So that's something to also be aware of. Now, the main benefit of co-working spaces, especially internationally, is that you get a cheaper cost of life. So whereas your bills in the United States may total $3,000-$4,000 a month, in Tulum, Mexico, for example, they may be only $1,500, $2,000 a month. If you are living with someone or you move with a friend, you can cut those costs in half. And so when you think about saving money and or spending money, your cost of living is going to decrease immensely. And that is the beauty of it. And not only will your cost of living decrease, but your food prices are going to decrease. You 9 times out of 10 are not going to need a car in these co-working spaces, because if you're in a smaller town, such as Tulum, you can get around on bikes or taxis, or you can walk a lot of places. And it's a slower pace of life. America, as someone who has lived in America all their life, as well as lived abroad, I lived in Spain for a year, I can definitely tell you that America is all about money. That's the number one goal, constantly working. There is this work dominant culture, even after the pandemic, where everything is so focused on work. But in other countries, in these co-working spaces, in places like Tulum, you do your work, but like you get to go to the beach after, right? You know, it's nice weather. You get to go to cenotes after. Like, you get to have these, like, really awesome experiences that you're not having had you been in your home country. Because typically, after you go to work, you come home, you may decompress, you may scroll on social media for a couple hours, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up to do it all over again. But in a place like Tulum, Mexico, once you're done working, you can go to the beach. You can go to another part of Mexico. You can, there's more freedom and flexibility because the cost of living is so much cheaper. So that's something to think about for your co-working spaces. Tulum, personally, I think is overrated just because the pricing. Like, Mexico is a very poor country. Yes, they have a large GDP, but for the type of economy that it has and the pricing of Tulum, and the reason why it's become so expensive is because a lot of foreigners are there, so they've just jacked up the price on everything. I personally wouldn't go there. I'm not interested in going to Tulum. I have been to Mexico. I'm actually going to Mexico in about a week and a half. So I'd rather just go to like other cities in Mexico. But Tulum is a great space. It's a super huge expat community. They do a lot of really good yoga classes, so I hear a lot of hot yoga. So check out Tulum if you're interested in co-working space. You want to be close to America. I think Tulum is it's a dope spot to check out. It's not for me. If you want to do it, if you want to look it up, go look it up. Now, let's talk about if you are like me and are practical, right? And you may not want to transition to a co-working space or moving out of the country quite yet. You can start domestically. So Washington, D.C. Yes, Washington, D.C. is a great domestic for those of you who are in the United States co-working space. Now, as a city, I absolutely love Washington, D.C. Like, it's lit. Washington, D.C. has the best brunch on the East Coast. It is a lit city where you can have a lot of fun, great nightlife. There's always something to do. It's our nation's capital. There's 1,000,001 museums. Like, there's something for everybody in Washington, D.C. And that includes co-working spaces. So I just looked it up. And I actually have a friend who lives in a co-working space in Washington, D.C. And some of them are called The Yard, Co-working Office Space, Mindspace, Washington, D.C., Hera Hub, Car Workplaces, Georgetown, Oval Offices, D.C., Spaces, The Hive. There's so many. But my point is that in a place like Washington, D.C., if you're not from there already, or even if you are from there, it is a great place to meet people. It's the nation's capital. Things are always going on. It's a lively city. It has great nightlife. So it's not, the city doesn't go to sleep at 9 p.m. And it's a great way to, meet people. Now, what I like about Washington, D.C.'s co-working spaces is that some of them you can live in. And so what does that mean? That means that you get an apartment that's fully furnished, that comes with high-speed Wi-Fi. Some of them have coffee shops in them, like downstairs in the lobby. Everything already ready to go. You just come and live there and pay, probably more than you would normally, because you are getting all these extra amenities, including a fully furnished apartment. But you get to meet people who, like you were probably there for like 6 months, or only there. That you may meet international people who are there like on some sort of exchange program, study abroad, or whatever else goes on in this government. And so that's a really great way to meet people as well. So I love Washington, D.C. I would definitely do it. I actually, when I was thinking about moving, which I eventually will move because I am Black Girl World Traveler and I can never stay in one place for too long, I was thinking about moving to Washington, D.C. into one of these co-working spaces. And the beauty of a co-working space, whether it's Tulum, Mexico, or Washington, D.C., is that you are finding community quickly. It is very hard to make friends as an adult. I don't know how y'all feel about that. Let me actually know your opinion on it. Like, do you feel like it's hard to make friends? Because I definitely think it's hard to make like good, solid friends as an adult, because everyone's so fake busy and here and there and not consistent, and people take long to respond to text messages, even though everybody always has their phone in their hand. It's like actually ridiculous. So I think that's the beauty of, my point is that there's beauty in already having built-in community building associated with whatever you're trying to do, right? Another thing that I want to highlight is the beauty of co-working spaces. Another beauty that I want to highlight of digital nomadism is your ability to have work-life balance. That is one huge, huge advantage to digital nomadism. We are on this 40-hour-a-week work schedule here in America. And that's only if you have one job, one full-time job. Sometimes it's like 37 and a half, 38, 39. 40 hours is like the standard, right? But a lot of times you can get your job done, or the job that you're hired to do, in 3 or 4 hours, but you have to stay all day, right? And you have to be watched by your employer if you're not doing digital nomadism. But when you are a digital nomad and you are hired for a job, let's say it's a program manager position for a nonprofit, and you work in the United States, but you live in Tulum, Mexico, for example. Whatever you have to do for your job, for your program manager job, you can get done in 3-4 hours. And then when you're done for the day, you can go to the beach. When you're done for the day, you can take a road trip. When you're done for the day, you can just sit there and do absolutely nothing. You're not obligated to stay in one space when you've already completed your job for the day. And so being a digital nomad has given a lot of individuals, including Black women, especially Black women who are bullied in the workplace and have to deal with microaggressions and racism, and people who are not as competent as them, bullying them in the workplace, freedom to live our best lives. And that is what I love about being a digital nomad. I don't have to deal with the fuckery and the bullshit that comes along with stupid racist people. I don't have to stay somewhere unnecessarily, even if I'm being paid for it or not, when I've done my job for the day. That is just the best way I can describe it. It is a breath of fresh air to not have to worry about other people. It is a breath of fresh air to just sit still and do nothing. Because let's be real, when was the last time you sat still and done nothing? I think for me, the last time I sat still and did nothing was this past Sunday. So yesterday on Monday, I just laid in my bed and I was like, it felt weird. It felt weird, even though right now I am working remotely. I feel like I'm programmed to always have to be on go, always have to be doing something else, always have to have a checklist. I always have to be, thinking about the next goal, the next greatest thing that I need to be doing. But the next greatest thing that I need to be doing is sitting still, shutting up, and probably taking a nap. And as Black women, we're not given the grace to be able to rest, right? We're always taking care of someone else, taking care of someone else's mess, fixing things, being the problem solver. And then on top of that, dealing with the daily duties of being a woman, whether that's a mother, a wife, a partner, a caregiver, a daughter, a friend, doing all those extra things. And, the weight of work, it weighs down on you. And so being a remote worker is saving a lot of people's lives. I'm going to say it. It saved my life too, because I have so much more flexibility. Me personally, I cannot work for people who are incompetent. That's one. But also, I don't want to work under people. I'm a very autonomous person. I'm competent and I am resourceful. So that means that for most things I am good at and I know how to do them. And for the things that I don't know how to do, I will find the resource in order to be able to know how to do it. And most people, I've realized, in working several different types of jobs, are not like that. And Black women, we are very highly competent and very resourceful. And so if we are able to use those skills in other ways outside of a traditional 9-to-5 workplace, why wouldn't you, I'm talking to you Black women, take advantage of that? And so that's the point that I want to make. Use your skills, take your skills, and flourish and go find freedom. And I think digital nomadism provides us with a freedom that we haven't seen before. It provides us with a much stronger work-life balance that we haven't seen before and or experienced. And it provides us time to be able to dream and think bigger. So that's the case for digital nomadism. I hope that you have learned something. I hope that you check out Tulum, Mexico, Washington, D.C., or one of the other 16 places that I named. As someone who used to live in Spain, I am biased. Spain is amazing. For digital nomads, I think Madrid is a really good city. But you can live anywhere, right? You're not limited to Tulum, Mexico, or Washington, D.C., or one of the 16 cities that I named at the earlier part of this podcast. Because anywhere where you have high-speed Wi-Fi, you can become a digital nomad. You can become a digital nomad in your home city right now today. You can find remote work if you already haven't done so, or negotiate with your job to become a remote worker. And at that point, you're a digital nomad. Now, the nomadism is, you got to kind of start traveling, start moving around a little bit, but you can make it your own. So I hope that you all will consider becoming digital nomads, or at the very least, thinking about ways to better your experience in the workplace and to advocate for yourselves so that you can get the freedom, the time, and the joy to dream bigger. That's it for today's episode of Digital Nomadism. Next week, we're going to delve more into the challenges of digital nomadism and navigating work-life balance. How do we do it all? Can we do it all? Is doing it all even realistic? So stay tuned for next week's episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Black Girl World Traveler podcast. I hope you enjoyed our talk about enjoying and seeing the world through a Black woman's perspective. If you like what you heard, help us out by clicking that subscribe button. Leave a review or share this episode with one of your favorite and most loving, caring Black women. Your support means a lot to me. In this episode, we cover digital nomadism, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too about future topics. Drop me a comment at Black Girl World Traveler on Instagram, or my email at blackgirlworldtraveler@gmail.com. Looking ahead, I've got more stories, travel tips, and honest conversations coming your way. I'm all about celebrating the meaningful adventures together. Before I wrap up, I'd like to thank the Black Girl World Traveler community and all the new followers that I have gained from this podcast. Y'all are making this experience so much more fun and worth it. And I see the joy and the momentum that Black Girl World Traveler is bringing. So remember, the adventure continues. Keep exploring, stay true to your journey, and we'll catch you next time. Take care, Shira.